This hourly segment is brought to you by Wealth Health Radio with Joe Murphy. Sundays, noon to 1. Learn more online at mwmfinancial.tax.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan, and in for Amy this morning, John Cass of johncastnews.com.
Living the dream.
Just before we get to our friend Heather MacDonald, this running thread we have on these preemptive pardons that the big guy issued this morning for Fauci, for Milley, and for the members and staff of the J6 Star Chamber, all of those Torquemadas and their staffers. Somebody's asking, some people have been asking about whether or not a person can refuse the presidential pardon, because apparently Adam Kinzinger, one of those aforementioned Torquemadas, I don't need a pardon, I don't want a pardon. And Adam Schiff has said the same. He's, prior to today's events.
I hope he doesn't.
Well, I mean, you can, you cannot be forced to accept a presidential pardon. So Kinzinger can repudiate it. The pardon will not be delivered, and the next president can revoke the pardon. That is possible. But just saying I don't need one is not the same as actually repudiating it. So we'll have to watch Kinzinger or anybody else who says, I'm not guilty of anything, I don't need a pardon, if they actually take the step to refuse to acknowledge it and thus leave themselves potentially open to legal exposure, criminal legal exposure, criminal or civil legal exposure for that matter. So,
box of tissues. Start crying, Kinzinger.
Yeah, well, just a point of order on that, as people are furiously discussing it, as you can imagine. The outgoing administration, that would be the big guys. This is another just sort of remarkable event, just like declaring by fiat that the Equal Rights Amendment is now part of the Constitution. I mean, this is really something. What will he do next? Well, here's one of the exit videos that the Biden administration would like you to remember them by. All of their good work in advancing the flag for diversity, equity, and inclusion, otherwise known as cultural Marxism. A former New Mexico congresswoman who became the Secretary of the Interior, Deb Haaland, leads it off.
I always start crying when I talk about this. So, President Biden promised that he would have a cabinet that looks like America, and he did.
We're talking about this incredible, full-throated commitment to equity.
There's more women of color, more people on the cabinet with perspectives that have never been around a decision-making table before.
I'm the member of President Biden's cabinet, his budget director, and I'm the first black woman to do it.
With diversity comes different views, different perspectives, and better decision-making.
What is happening with this administration under the leadership of this president is historic in so many ways.
I am so proud to be the first Native American to serve on the president's cabinet. Welcome to the Department of the Interior. And I hope that my perspective has helped the president to make the decisions that he knows will better our country.
He's led from the front, and it's been really a privilege to serve in his administration and trying to make the dream of America real to as many people as possible.
The better decision-making, that's definitely the hallmark of this administration. That's what I think of when I think of Team Biden. And by the way, that woman who is the budget director, I'm the first black woman to do it. I wouldn't run around bragging about being Biden's budget director, just FYI.
You know what? I love the theme music.
It's very upbeat.
It's the Enlightenment, right? They are the enlightened, aren't they?
Yeah, it's very chipper. For more on this, please be joined by Heather MacDonald, the Thomas W. Smith Fellow at the Manhattan Institute, author of, appropriately, When Race Trumps Merit, How the Pursuit of Equity Sacrifices Excellence, Destroys Beauty, and Threatens Lives. That sounds like a more accurate description of the Biden years. Heather MacDonald, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan and John.
How about that exit video? Were you moved?
I was definitely moved in a way I'm not even going to talk about anatomically. If I know that I've been put on panels and whatnot because I'm female, that is a complete insult. And anybody that is doing that is guaranteeing a lower quality pool of applicants. Whenever you make what you look like, what you look like is by definition going to be totally irrelevant to any kind of meritocratic position. Maybe for Miss America or Miss Universe it makes a big difference, but otherwise I don't care what my doctor looks like. I don't care what my cancer researcher looks like. And when you make that a criterion, you're knocking out of that candidate pool the people who are best qualified but don't look right. And Biden did that again and again. Here's some data from the last 4 years of hell that should make us all very worried, Dan and John. He put 2/3 of his judges on the federal bench were people of color. Again, being a person of color is not relevant to being a judge. They're there for life. We have a mediocre set of judges. 48% of his U.S. attorneys were black, even though blacks are only 13% of the population. When you add to that the fact that we have a huge academic skills gap, 22% of blacks never passed the bar after 5 tries compared to 3% of whites. If you're making 48% of your U.S. attorneys black, you are going to be lowering the standards radically. And that's what we got. We got criminal justice that was driven by racial considerations, not by keeping people safe, not by figuring out how do we get criminals off the streets. Rather, we were saying, how do we keep criminals out of the criminal justice system? Because if we lock away fare beaters, if we lock away thieves, we're going to have a disparate impact on blacks, and it's more important to avoid disparate impact on black criminals than to keep people safe. And that's been the 4 years of the travesty of the Justice Department under President Biden.
Well, the good news out of the gate, as if what is being reported is true, one of the 200 or so odd executive orders Trump is expected to sign today is the elimination of all DEI programs in the federal government, which in addition to being counterproductive in terms of advancing talented people to do important work, also saves about $125 billion the federal government was spending, we've come to find out.
This is the best thing that Trump will do. It is an astounding change, Dan and John. We have had our science agencies have been decimated by the importance placed on sex and gender and race. We have our science agencies, our energy department, our National Institutes of Health have been doling out federal grants on the basis of race and sex, which is completely counterproductive. To get rid of that and restore science, I hope, to its integrity, the greatest human accomplishment is the scientific method, being able to figure out how nature works through rational procedures. We have ignored that and put in place the irrationality of identity politics. This is the best thing that he can do. He should get rid of the disparate impact standard throughout all the federal regulations. In some cases, you're going to need Congress to change statutes. He's got to press them to do that. But if we can restore this country to the pursuit of excellence, we actually will be able to keep ahead of China. If we were to continue down the same path of the Biden-Harris regime, making race and sex more important than mathematical accomplishment, China is going to eat our lunch.
In your recent piece, you're speaking about criminal justice for City Journal, and I want to read one line of it that really struck me. It is depolicing and deprosecution, however, that creates harmful, disparate impacts on people of color. By failing to get criminals off the streets, but avoiding harm to black victims is not a top priority of racial justice activists. Correct?
Well, this is the mystery that people like you and I, John, have had to live with for the last 20 years. We hear this Black Lives Matter chant, and we look around and we say, what about the black victims? What about all those black children in Chicago who've been gunned down? There's never been a Black Lives Matter protest about them. After the George Floyd race riots, the police backed off of policing. You had police chiefs saying, don't make arrests for turnstile jumping, don't make arrests for theft, don't make arrests for disorderly conduct, resisting arrest of a police officer, because that will have a disparate impact on blacks. Prosecutors stopped prosecuting. We all know Kim Foxx, George Gascon, Alvin Bragg. What happened? We had the largest single-year increase in homicide in this nation's history, 29%. The vast majority of additional victims were black. They paid the price, and not a single peep from the Black Lives Matter activists. The only blacks that the activists care about is the handful, barely a dozen a year out of a black population of about 40 million who may be technically unarmed that the police shoot fatally. And those are often under very, very questionable circumstances. Those are the only blacks that the activists care about. They're happy to let 10,000 blacks get gunned down by other blacks in insane drive-by shootings because they have so demoralized the cops that they're just driving on by clear scenes of suspicious conduct.
Heather MacDonald is the Thomas W. Smith Fellow at the Manhattan Institute, author of When Race Trumps Merit, How the Pursuit of Equity Sacrifices Excellence, Destroys Beauty, and Threatens Lives. Heather, thank you as always. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan and John.
And Heather joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank. It's a bank